Yes, yes. Now, come on, Texas. Come on, Texas. Let's make some noise for the next governor of the great state of Texas, Beto O'Rourke.
How we doing, Texas Tech? Good to be with you. Hey, it is so good to be back here. Every time we have come out, you all have shown up. And what's happening in this community right now, what some of you have led on for years, in some cases decades, makes me so damn proud of this community to be a Texan and to have the chance to run to serve you in the highest position of public trust. If you look around us at this room, you see Texas right now. You see those who have made our future possible. People like Rose Wilson. If you don't mind standing, Rose, she is a civil rights hero, not just in Lubbock, but in Texas and the United States. And to show you that she's not the exception, is Ellie Mae still with us? Ellie Mae, where are you? She founded the first chapter of the NAACP on the Texas Tech campus in 2021. Now has, look, and some of you may be familiar with it, some of you are not. There's another college in Texas called the University of Texas at Austin. And Ellie Mae and this team here have been able to sign up more students to be members of the NAACP here than at that one in Austin, Texas, even though they've been there for a lot longer. And then there's this. When we were showing up in 2017 and 2018, and I'll tell you, there were other Democrats, present company excluded, who thought we were crazy for coming to Lubbock or Amarillo or Plainview. But we kept showing up, and folks kept turning out. Many of you here were among them. And you helped to do something absolutely exceptional and transformative in Texas political history. Together, we produced the largest voter turnout in a midterm election since 1970. Young voter turnout was up 504% from the previous midterm, thanks to Texas Tech students. We saw 12 new State House Democrats, 2 new Democratic members of Congress who flipped control of that institution. And we not only made those gains, we kept them going into 2020, and we set the base, the foundation for what we are all doing here today. So I want to thank Jacob and Penelope, especially Susan and Janet, for their public service and commitment to this community, and for showing up where we don't often see Democrats showing up. And I want to thank all of you, because by being here today, for those of you not yet on the rolls getting registered right now, it is literally the last day, October 11th, this Tuesday, today, to get on those rolls. What we are all doing together right now means that we are going to win this election on the night of November 8th. You all ready to win? And here's how I know we're going to win. As Penelope reminded us, each and every single one of us is fighting for each and every single woman in Texas to make her own decisions about her own body, her own future, her own health care. We prioritize the lives of our kids over the interests of the NRA, the gun lobby, any politician, including Greg Abbott. These amazing public school educators, our classroom teachers, our librarians, our counselors, we're going to make sure that we treat them with the dignity and respect that they deserve, pay them enough not to work 2 or 3 jobs to make ends meet, allow them to focus on those kids in the classroom by canceling the STAR tests so they don't have to perform to a high-stakes, high-pressure exam. We're going to make sure that for the men and women here who have already served this country in uniform, and many of you are using your post-9/11 GI Bill to attend Tech right now, members of the Guard, future members of the military, listen, I want to acknowledge, 1, the deep gratitude that each and every single one of us has for each and every single one of you. 2, that this country spares no expense to send you off to war in harm's way, to risk losing your life, and sometimes to ask you to take the lives of others in the name of this country. But all too often, when you return to Texas and to Lubbock or to Plainview or to Amarillo, you find this country and even this state wanting in its ability to make sure that you're okay. Though we're the 9th largest economy on the planet today, this evening there will be veterans sleeping on the side of the road, on park benches, underneath bridges in this great state. I propose that we spare no expense, that we bear any burden necessary to make sure that not only does every veteran have a roof over their head, but that they're connected to the care that very often means saving their lives. And when they come back and say, hey, Beto, when I'm able to get into the VA or to the clinic in Dalhart, and I see that provider and they prescribe an opioid, I'm worried that I may become addicted, and from that addiction, I'm worried that I might die, as so many tens of thousands, and too many of them are veterans, have in America. They tell me, listen, there's something else that I can use that relieves my symptoms, restores my appetite, allows me to sleep at night, but to use it in Texas makes me a criminal in the eyes of the law. So I say to you, when we win, we are legalizing marijuana in the state of Texas. And given the fact that Texans of all backgrounds, races, ethnicities use this at the same rate, but disproportionately black and brown Texans are stopped, are frisked, are arrested, are incarcerated, are upon release forced to check a box saying that they have a conviction on every employment application form, harder to get a student loan to come here or a small business loan to create other jobs for their fellow Texans. I say we expunge the arrest records of those who have served time for possession of this substance. And then there's this, something that Rose Wilson has been fighting for her entire life, and that is for each and every single one of us to be able to freely participate in our elections, regardless of the differences between us. We want to make sure, whether we're Republicans, Democrats, independents, that we can participate in this democracy, the very democracy that those men and women in uniform swore an oath to. They did not pledge their loyalty to the president or to a political party or to anyone in power, but this form of government that is the exception, not the rule, over the course of human history and even on the planet today. It is harder to vote in Texas than any other state in the union, harder to get your name on the rolls, and that's why I'm so grateful for these volunteer deputy registrars who will help you to do that right now. But listen, it is hard for us with a straight face to call ourselves a democracy when 13% of the mail-in ballots just this last March were rejected by this state. 13 out of 100 times someone tried to vote and had that ballot returned. Now, if that happened in Russia or China or Iran or North Korea, we'd say, you know what? That checks out. 13% of the ballots returned. They're not a real democracy. But today, that is us. So I tell you, not only must you register to vote, if you can, I want you to sign up with one of our volunteers wearing the yellow vests to knock on the doors of those targeted for suppression and intimidation, to bring them in. And after we win, we've got to improve the rules so everyone can participate. That means automatic voter registration, so that when you turn 18, you're automatically on the rolls in this state. Online voter registration, same-day voter registration, replacing a system of districts where members of Congress choose their voters instead of the other way around. To replace gerrymandering with citizen-led redistricting commissions means we've got to win. And then there's this. I want to try this one on for size here in Lubbock. What if we replaced Confederate Heroes Day as a celebrated state holiday with Election Day as a celebrated state holiday, so you can take the day off of school or off of work and be able to cast that ballot? And listen, there's one more important reason that I know that we're going to win. We are running against arguably the worst governor in the United States of America today. His name is Greg Abbott. Let me give this to you by the numbers. A little bit more than 1 month ago, the most extreme abortion ban in America went into effect. It begins at conception. There is no exception for rape. There is no exception for incest. It is taking place at the epicenter of a maternal mortality crisis that is 3 times as deadly for black women in the state of Texas, because as you close down these reproductive health care clinics, you are also foreclosing the opportunity to get a cervical cancer screening or see a family planning provider or just to see a doctor of any kind in the least insured state in America. Now, some of you may say, listen, Beto, we're just too red, too Republican, too conservative to overcome this. And I just want to remind you of our history to make the point that not only can we overcome this, we've overcome it before against much longer odds. 50 years ago, abortion was just as illegal in the state of Texas as it is today. But no person, no man came from outside of the state to save the day for Texas women. Instead, it was Texas women, whether that was Jane Roe or her 2 attorneys, Sarah Whittington from Abilene, Texas, or Linda Coffey, who still lives in Dallas. Those 3 young Texas women successfully pled the case for privacy, to make very personal, very often painful decisions on your own without government intrusion or interference. And their victory in 1973 in Roe versus Wade stood the test of time for nearly half a century. So listen, this is my theory. If it was Texas women who won the way 50 years ago, then it will be Texas women who win it back in 2022. We're counting on you. No pressure. I've got another number for you that describes the failure that we've got to overcome at this moment, and that number is 20. That's how many weeks it has been since 19 children and their 2 amazing teachers were taken from us in Uvalde, Texas. Those kids absolutely defenseless against a young man, 18 years old, who could legally purchase not 1 but 2 AR-15s, hundreds of rounds of ammunition. That weapon of war, first designed, engineered, sold to the United States military during the Vietnam era to take an enemy soldier down at 500 yards, penetrate a steel helmet, and knock him down dead. Those kids were not at 500 yards, they were at 5 feet. They didn't have a steel helmet on their head, maybe a baseball cap at best. Their parents could identify their bodies only by the shoes that they were wearing. But they weren't just defenseless against that gunman and that kind of firearm. They were defenseless against a governor who, after 5 of the worst mass shootings in American history have occurred in this state in just the last 5 years. Those of you from the Permian Basin know about those 8 that we lost in 2019 in Midland, Odessa, the 23 killed in El Paso, my hometown, the month before, Sutherland Springs, Santa Fe High School, and now Uvalde. 20 weeks. And this governor has not lifted a finger to make it any less likely that any other child, my 3 kids going to school in El Paso, your younger brothers and sisters, wherever they are in Texas, will not meet the same fate as those 19 children there. But we have an answer to this. Listen, like many of you, I grew up here, and I know that we've got this long, proud tradition of responsible gun ownership in Texas. All I ask is that Republican, Democrat, Independent alike, that we work to get back to that. That means raising the age of purchase for an AR-15 to 21. That means a red flag law. That means a universal background check, which would have averted that tragedy in Midland, Odessa. On this much, we can agree. You know, raising the age, those states that have done it, including Florida, whose Republican governor, 23 days after those students were killed, were slaughtered at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, 23 days to raise the age. It's been 20 weeks in Texas and nothing. Mass shootings in that state have declined by 80% since that action was taken. We could do the same here right now. All that is lacking is the leadership. The political will from the people is present. And I know that because I've gone to every community in this state. I've listened to those who are for me. I've listened to those who will never vote for me. I've listened to those who own guns. I've listened to those who'll never own one. All of us can agree on this much, that we can defend the Second Amendment while doing a better job of protecting the lives of those in our communities, and especially those kids in those classrooms. You all with me on this? I think we can get this done. Here's another number. 18 months ago, the temperature drops in Texas, which happens to be the energy capital of the world. So much of those energy resources literally found not too far from where we stand and sit at this moment. And yet, despite that embarrassment of energy wealth and resources, the person in power could not keep the power going to those he was supposed to serve. The lights went out throughout much of Texas. The heat stopped running. The water stopped flowing because it was literally frozen in the pipes above people's heads. Those pipes soon burst when it warmed up and destroyed their homes. $10 billion in property damage was done February of 2021. But listen, you cannot put a price on the lives of those that we lost. More than 700 people across this state. An 11-year-old boy in Conroe, Texas. His mom unable to pile enough blankets atop his shivering body. He's dead the next morning. A 75-year-old Vietnam-era veteran could no longer charge his oxygen tank in his house, so he rolls it out to his truck where he plans to charge it there, found dead of hypothermia. Kids who burned up with their families when their parents set fire to their furniture. You don't do that unless it's the only way to keep your kids warm and hopefully alive. Those fires got out of control. Kids who died of carbon monoxide poisoning in their garages for the same reason. And to add insult to injury, that grid is still not fixed. We're no better prepared going into this next winter than we were in the last. And you're every single one of us, paying $45 more on average for our utility bills because we got left holding the bag while we were freezing in our homes. The governor, Greg Abbott, ordered the price of electricity pegged at its highest allowable rate. Gas soon started trading at 200 times what it had sold for the day before. We heard Janet talk about one of his contributors. His company made $2.4 billion over 5 days, supercharging, price gouging our fellow Texans. All told, those energy traders and pipeline corporations made $11 billion off of our suffering. So here's the answer. Not only do we win, but we must weatherize and winterize every part of the grid. We must connect ERCOT, our grid, with the national grid so we can draw power down when we need it, sell it back up when we've got too much. And look, I just want to make sure that we're following the law. So we're going to take those bastards who stole the $11 billion from us to court and return every single penny to the ratepayers of the state of Texas, and Janet's going to help me get that done. I've got this last number for you, and it is the number 8. That's the number of years, más o menos, that this guy has been in the governor's seat. 8 years. And so whatever he wants to scare you about or blame somebody else for, this guy sits at the desk where the buck stops in Texas. His party controls literally every lever of power, and these aren't new to them. For 20 years plus, they've had unitary control of the state house, the state senate, every statewide elected office. Prior to serving as governor, this guy was the attorney general of the state. So whatever he wants to scare you about or blame someone else for, just remember, this is what we have after 8 years of Greg Abbott. And look, I know that some of you are from Houston. I know we have some people from El Paso. Is El Chuco in the house? Right here. We've got folks from all over the state of Texas. But I also know uniquely, right here at Tech, we have those young men and women who come from more rural communities, either in the Panhandle or the Plains or North Texas or behind the Pine Curtain far east of here. And I just want to say this. Your governor is taking you for granted. He's not showing up because when I go to Pampa and Dumas and Spearman, where when I was in Spearman, there were as many people who came to oppose my visit as came to support it. But you know what? They said, we've never seen the governor here, so we came to see what you were about. And when we listen to one another, find that common ground, something starts to happen. Folks say, you know what? I didn't know that you had this answer to funding for public ed, or that you wanted to expand Medicaid so more of us could see a provider or go to a mental health care specialist. Beto, I like your idea on legalizing marijuana. Whatever it is, showing up is so powerful. And I'll tell you how powerful it is. True story, reported in the Texas Tribune. As we're going to these rural communities, and as we invite in the Abbott folks who are protesting our visit, we say, come into the town hall. We want you to hear what I've got to say, and I want to hear, more importantly, what you've got to say. We're converting so many of these Abbott folks that the campaign, the Abbott campaign, sends out an email to their supporters, and they say, look, if Beto comes to your town, and you want to protest him, that's fine. But whatever you do, do not go into the meeting and listen to him, because we're losing far too many of you. And I'll tell you why. This underfunding of public ed, yeah, it's bad in El Paso, it is bad in Lubbock, it is bad in Dallas. But in our rural communities, those teachers are underpaid by $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 a year against their counterparts nationally. All right? Retired teachers have not seen a cost of living adjustment in 18 years. And imagine how much prices have gone up for each and every single one of them. A governor who wants to turn our public tax dollars into vouchers and send school money to private schools, that stuff does not fly in rural Texas. When we talk about the permanent university fund that uses the oil and gas and resource wealth of West Texas and ships it off to another part of the state without coming back to Texas Tech or to Canyon or to any of our institutions of higher learning that produce that wealth in the first place, people take note. And then there's this. 16 hospitals have closed down in rural Texas on Greg Abbott's watch. That means more people driving more miles or leaving those communities altogether. And when he vetoes the Universal Service Fund, your internet and phone bills went up more than 200%. So I just want to tell you, he is sleeping on rural Texas right now, thinks that he's got you in the bag, that your votes are already counted for. I'm coming out day in and day out to fight for you, to earn those votes, and as governor to be able to deliver for you day in and day out. You all with me on this one too? We got to be there for everybody. He is, after 8 years, going to try to scare you about crime in the state of Texas. 8 years that he's been governor, he's going to say, look out. There's all this crime, there's all this defund going on in Texas. Greg Abbott, I'm the only one who can save you. Well, let me share the facts with you. Homicides in Texas on his watch, up 50%. And they didn't just rise of their own accord when police officers begged him not to sign permitless carry into law, which means that the license to carry program that we had that required a background check to carry a gun in public was done away for. Homicides through the roof. More law enforcement gunned down in this state than in any other. And today, gun violence is the leading cause of death for children and teenagers in the state of Texas. And then there's this. For the women in the room, I want to just share this with you. When he was signing that most extreme abortion ban into law, a reporter asked him, Mr. Governor, there's no exception for rape. What are you going to do about the victims of rape? And the governor responded, we're going to eliminate rape in the state of Texas. He literally said that. More rapes have been committed in this state than in any other state in the union. The ability to bring a perpetrator to justice, a rapist to justice, has declined by half since Greg Abbott has been governor. There are thousands of untested rape kits at DPS headquarters right now. This abortion ban is not about life. It is not about heartbeats. It is about power and control over the bodies of women. If it was about life, he would do something about saving the lives of those who are under attack. Y por el último, last and maybe one of the most important things for us here in Texas, and especially this part of Texas, and that is immigration and the border. And we begin by acknowledging, listen, there are legitimate challenges and causes for concern at the border. The illegal drugs that are trafficked into this country, the human beings who are smuggled into America right now by coyotes, sometimes paying exorbitant amounts of money, sometimes being kept in a modern-day slavery right here in Texas. We must be more vigilant and more successful against that to keep us safe and secure. But I'll tell you, the vast majority of those who seek to come to America right now want to work jobs that no one born in this country is willing to work. I know that from talking to the cotton growers in Lamesa, the gin owners in Roscoe. They say, it does not matter, Beto, how much I pay. I can't find anyone born in these communities to do this work, but there are those who will come to this country for the privilege of making sure that you've got threads on your back right now, or picking the food that you are going to eat tonight. What if, instead of stunts like sending them on buses to Chicago or DC, we had a safe, legal, orderly path for anybody who wants to come here to work, to do better for themselves, and do better for all of us. Anyone who wants to join family and finds themselves in a 20-year line right now from Mexico or India or the Philippines, raise those visa caps, make sure there's a safe, legal, orderly path to come here. And for the asylum seeker and the refugee, and these are the people who have my heart. You don't travel 2,000 miles, the length of this continent, for kicks. You don't get in the back of a trailer where 53 migrants were found dead in San Antonio earlier this year to steal somebody's job or place in society or get free health care or whatever else they want to lie to you about. You do that with your young child, because to stay in Honduras or Haiti means to die in Honduras or Haiti. And so you come here, a country that is comprised of refugees and asylum seekers. John Lewis, with whom I had the great pleasure of serving in Congress for 6 years, used to say this: at one point or another, our families, each of us, all came to this country in a different ship. Today, we're in the same boat, and we should take stock of that. Now, your family may have first come here 15,000 years ago, crossing the Bering Strait, first settling where we are in Texas, a reminder that where we stand and sit was originally indigenous land, right? There are others who know that their ancestors were literally kidnapped on another continent, brought across the Atlantic, and in bondage forced to build the wealth and the success of this country and this state without ever being legally able to partake in it. Others, like the O'Rourkes, fled Ireland in the 19th century because to stay on that island meant to die in that famine that killed 1 million people. That is who we are, people from the planet over. And the genius of America, and especially of Texas, is we found a way to come together and be part of something bigger than any single one of us individually. All I ask is that we get back on the common ground, use some common sense, stop trading and trafficking in this hateful rhetoric of invasions and animals and infestations that prompts slaughters like the one that we saw in El Paso by a white supremacist who said he came to stop the Hispanic invasion that he was warned about. Let's instead offer the solutions that allow us to meet our needs, that match our values, and allow us to lead on something that we know better than any other state in the Union. When we win this election, we're going to trade stunts for solutions. We're going to provide that leadership that we have been looking for, bringing Republicans, Democrats, independents alike together, whether it's immigration, whether it's crime, whether it's public ed, whether it's access to health care, supporting veterans. We in Texas are going to get it done, and we're going to get it done together. You all with me? We're going to do this. One last reminder, there are volunteers in yellow vests across this room. We have 28 days until this contest is decided. Arguably the most important election in Texas history. It will decide the future, the fate, the fortune of this state. And this is on you. It will not be won by the candidate. Will not be won by my political party. It will be won through the power of people. So no pressure, Lubbock, but the fate of Texas hinges on what you decide to do today. If you're not registered, please see a VDR in the hall. It'll take you 2 minutes. If you are registered, please join us with a volunteer in the yellow vest. They'll get you signed up. And lastly, we're going to hang out for a little while to take pictures and say hello. If you snap a picture with us, I just ask that you post that on social media. It's going to reach your friends and family and neighbors. It's going to give them a reason to come in and vote as well. You all ready to win? I'm ready to do it with you. Les agradezco. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you all very much. You all right?
So we're